baseball people out there in the universe. Leachy here, back with the One Hit Wonder podcast. I've had so much going on, so I wanted to pop in here and get these topics and subjects off my mind. Hope everyone's out there still balling. I know the big league season's winding down, the summer season's winding down. Shoot, it'll be fall before you know it, and in the youth space, the fall players will be right back at it. But one of the things, I wrote this down after I did the last podcast, what I wanted to cover was the topic of position change. As, you know, kids move along, I know in Little League, everyone thinks their kid's the shortstop or this or that, but as the field gets bigger, sometimes a position change is warranted. And I wanted to talk about some of the guys that I came across in my playing career, some that I know personally, and I play with personally, that, believe it or not, were position change guys and end up having tremendous careers in the at the major league level. First guy I wanted to talk about was Hall of Famer Trevor Hoffman. Now, Trevor, my history with Trevor is, when I signed with the Yankees, we used to have an off-season scout team down in Southern California, ran by, the now general manager of the Colorado Rockies, Bill Schmidt, in which he would incorporate not just the minor leaguers from Southern California, but the potential draft prospects. We would play, I felt like it was 18 innings of baseball on a Saturday. I forgot the name of the junior college down in SoCal. And there were guys out there that went on to have big league careers. JT Snow, Andy Stankiewicz, and Trevor Hoffman. And I was there when Trevor had to make the transition from being a shortstop to pitcher, and he wasn't happy. He came out and he said, I think he was with the Cincinnati Reds at the time, and they said, you know, we love the glove, but the bat's a little light, and we feel like it's in your best interest to change the pitcher because he had a good arm. Well, Trevor wasn't happy because I believe he was All-American at University of Arizona, and he was a hot shot player, but the organization thought otherwise, and he came out. I remember he used to wear he didn't even wear his uniform. He wore those old, for those of you from that era will remember, those bike coaching shorts. So he didn't even have a uniform on. He was pitching out there in shorts and just disgruntled. And I'd hear him, man, I'm a shortstop and this and that. But he knew what he had to do, so he kept doing it. And to my knowledge, a coach that I had downline in Venezuela, Derek Botello, I believe he taught him that changeup, which was his separator pitch, which basically, put him in the Hall of Fame by developing that pitch. So I thought that was, very, very interesting in seeing, this guy kind of begrudgingly not want to change positions at the time, and then actually doing it and then becoming a Hall of Famer. So it's almost like if I see him, I'd be like, so Trev, how did it work out for you? You probably have a statue out there in front of Petco one of these days. So players, you never know if you need to change positions. The next guy I wanted to talk about was Jorge Posada, the great catcher for the Yankees. I played with him in A-ball and AAA. I played with him in A-ball when they told him he had to change to catching because they had too many guys at that position ahead of him. So they basically strong-armed him and said, hey, either you're going to catch or you're going to go back to Puerto Rico. So Jorge called his pop, who was a scout, told him what they were doing, and his pop said, well, if you want to keep playing, you better do what they ask of you. And another guy who, swore he was a second baseman, but he did what he had to do. And, it ended up working out for him, having a tremendous career, and it's like I always see him. I'll be like, Georgie, so how did it work out for you? Because you didn't want to change positions either. So, another guy, borderline Hall of Famer, Yankee great, so on and so forth, that was not at his position that he ended up making a mark at. The next guy I want to talk about, Kenley Jansen. For those of you who may not know, Kenley might make the Hall of Fame. Still going. He was a catcher. There's video out there of him hitting, I believe, like on the WBC team for Team Netherlands back in the day. But, he's a huge man. I've met him with long arms and limbs. And, Kenley developed that cutter that's been, for the most part, unhittable during his big league career. A few other guys that people may remember, may not remember. Felix Rodriguez, I played with him on the Giants. He was a hard-throwing reliever, another catcher. There's a theme here that when we were in A-ball, he was catching, but the bat was light. I believe it might have been the Dodgers that changed him over. I'd have to fact check that. But he ended up having a pretty substantial major league career as a relief pitcher. Here's a guy that I know some people would remember, Troy Percival, another catcher. Went on to become the closer for the Angels of Anaheim or whatever they're called down there. Another guy with a very, very strong arm. End up making or having a really substantial career, closing out games for the Angels. And the last guy I wanted to talk about was Jeff Cirillo. Me and Jeff, I know Jeff. We go back to college, so he was at USC and I was at Pepperdine. I don't remember Jeff hitting. I know we had this discussion not too long ago. But I only remember Cirillo as a pitcher. He had a nasty curveball. He wasn't overpowering, but he had a good hook. He could move the ball around. He knew how to pitch. And, I believe he was drafted as a pitcher. And, maybe the velocity wasn't there and they let him hit the bat. I can't remember if it was Milwaukee who took him. Originally, but he got a chance to hit, and Cirillo basically raked for probably almost 15 years in the big leagues. And my history started with him being a pitcher in college. So you never know when a position change is warranted. And in regards to myself, I think back to, because I was a journeyman, trying to hang on. I remember one year, this might have been around 98, 99, with maybe even 2001 when I was in camp with the Giants, where they were trying to increase my value of not just being an outfielder, I could play all three, was take some reps at first base. So I was out there early work every morning with Robbie Thompson, shout out Thompson, wherever you're at, hitting me grounders and trying to teach me all the nuances of first base. I had to wear a cup. Believe it or not, I don't know if they're wearing them now. Outfielders, we didn't wear cups back then, so I had to wear that uncomfortable cup. But, I was trying and working, never got in the game at it in spring training. It was just moving way too fast. Coming from the outfield back into the infield, that was an uphill battle. And it made me think back to when I was in Little League. I used to play first base because being left-handed, I could only pitch, play first, or play the outfield. So I used to play a lot of first base in Little League. And thinking back to those days now, I wish I would have continued to play first base in middle school, high school, maybe even could have got some reps in college. But it's just, I was deemed an outfielder or center fielders. So I was stuck out there, and then you fast forward however many years later, here I am in pro baseball trying to, stay in the game as much as possible and trying to learn first base, and it was just moving way too fast. So I think at the end of the day, it's easier for an infielder to go out than an outfielder to come in because speed of ball. The ball moves so much faster in the infield than it does in the outfield. So my closing thought on this first segment is players out there, don't be stubborn and think that you're only at one position, because the difference in you making a team or not, or another guy making it or not, might be that versatility. Yesterday I was at the Giants game, making my first big league appearance at a game this year. And I went to support I talk about him a lot on here, my brother from another mother, Kevin Jordan, as he went into the San Francisco Sports Prep Hall of Fame. And they had a big old shindig at the ballpark, and he got to go on the field and TV and all that. So it was cool to be there to support him for that. And then while I was there, I got to see some of my old bosses. And so I got to go over into the general manager's box, because I've always kept those relationships, open regardless of the business. And, I shot Bobby Evans, the former GM of the Giants, a text to ask if he's at the game. Him and assistant general manager Jeremy Shelley, who's still there. And I went in and I saw Bobby, and then I looked to my right, and there's the new boss in charge, Mr. Buster Posey. And I had met Buster years ago when he was a player, and I was scouting under the Sabian Evans regime. But yesterday was my first time meeting him in recent years. And I'm still a scout. The one thing in me, when I shook his hand, I said, those are catcher's hands. I mean, his hands, just the strength in his hands, that just told me right away, this guy has caught a lot of pitches. And so I just kind of chuckled on the inside, said, yeah, that's a catcher. So it was cool to go in there and meet him. And I know the team had been struggling. I told them I was bringing a W. I was bringing the good vibes. And so, which I did. They ended up beating Tampa yesterday. So kudos to them. And it was really cool that, Bobby did a rundown to Buster, about who I was and, been in the org. I guess I've been in the org off and on since 1998. And Bobby's recall was really, really sharp. I mean, because I had to catch myself because I know him and I've known him for so long, but he has gone through goobs and gobs. I don't know how many players has he been involved with in his San Francisco Giants career. Thousands of guys, on all levels. And then other teams, guys. So he gave a good rundown to Buster, which I really appreciate. And Bobby and I have had this really unique relationship, thanks to him being tight with one of my old teammates, Brad Woodall, when they were both at the University of North Carolina. Shout out Woody, wherever you are these days. But yeah, Bobby's always been good to me. So that was cool to meet Buster and in his new role. And then, I also got to spend a little time catching up with my old boss, the assistant general manager, Jeremy Shelley, who's been there, for years and in a variety and just sharp as all can be. But the time we were talking about our kids and his, I remember his daughters were young, and now his oldest is like almost graduated college. It's like blink and, because in baseball, we do the same thing day in, day out, try to win a game, do it again tomorrow, and then spring training, off season, spring training, season, so it was cool to catch up with him. I also got to see some of my old recent bosses, the now general manager, Zach Manazian. He's got a little one now. He's got a new job title. So, and his assistant, and Paul Bean and just some of the other guys that are in there. And just, last year I was there and now I'm gone. But I just chalk everything up as it's just baseball, and it's just the industry. And there aren't many people in the fraternity. So I never really hold grudges because I know how it works. If the team doesn't perform, changes can come. And so it is what it is. Kind of, I approach it always like I approached it playing. You play good, you keep your job. You don't play well, you can get released, or what I say, you can get fired. So it's all a part of it. But the relationships you make and the people you meet along the line, those things kind of just hold tight. And so it was good to see a lot of people at the ballpark that I hadn't seen in a while. And also I got to use, because I had been in the game for so long, I got to use this at yesterday's game. So the lifetime pass, the Willy Wonka gold ticket. And it was cool just to, use it in its best seat available. And I can go to any game in any stadium. So if I'm in your town and they got a big league team, hit me up. We can go to a game and sit up there, chop it up about baseball and whatnot. So, that was cool. And really, I was proud of Kevin getting into that Hall of Fame. And I got to see his mom, which we figured out. I hadn't seen his mom. We figured between the years of 90 and 93 was the last time I seen his mom. So time flies. So I got to catch up with her, which was awesome. And, Kevin's wife, Kathy, put it all together. And, he had all people from his childhood years up to the kids he trains and coaches in the youth space now. And even though I'm gonna sound like a homer, I don't work there anymore. But I grew up, I was born in San Francisco, Kaiser, Fifth, and Gary. And so I was always a Giants fan, and still a Giants fan. And it was good to see them get the W, because I know a lot of people that work there, coach there, and they're friends. And, I want them to keep their jobs always. So a part of me, I pull for them, even though I don't have any skin in the game. Okay, my next subject I wanted to talk about was, and I've been asked this by parents a lot, and I am not, a bat expert. I know there's so many bats out there that the kids are liking, using, wanting, but, I tell the parents, regardless of the make, the model of the bat, when you decide you're going to get a new bat, is go to the sporting goods store. And I just did this with one of the kids in the cage the other day. I just imagine if I had my arm completely out to my side, and I told the kid to hold the bat up in his right hand, and I asked him how it felt. And if he said, oh, it feels heavy, it feels okay, or if it feels light, that means that bat feels right for that hand. And then I have them switch it over to their left hand and ask the exact same questions. I said, for me, whenever I pick my bats up, and I know I swung mostly wood bats in my lifetime, is I would hold those bats out with either arm and feel how the weight is distributed. I know some people like bats that are more balanced. Some people like bats that are more end-loaded. I mean, now we got the torpedo bats where you see like Jazz and Volpe on the Yankees. There's other guys, I'm sure, where they move the barrel down closer to the label. So really, I wouldn't buy a bat based upon its name, or the model. I would pick that joker up and hold it up with both arms and see how it feels. And if it's draping my arm, my shoulder, probably too heavy for me, because that's going to enter your train of thoughts when you get in the batter's box. Like, man, how am I going to get this heavy thing around versus this kid up here throwing smoke? So get that bat that's light as a feather, so you can, really hitting is just, you just want to catch the ball. I mean, it should just be, the bat should just be an extension of your hand, your arm. And when you swing that bat, you want to make sure you have control of it. I mean, bat control is hitting. So really just, in regards to bats, just don't go get in line with what everyone else is getting. Get what works for you. Thank you for jumping on and listening to me rant about baseball. Leachy and his One Hit Wonder podcast is out. To the next episode. See what pops into my head or what I see out there on the ball field. Keep swinging that bat, boys and girls.